Well, look what showed up on the porch this morning. It'll be fun putting this together based on some videos I've seen on assembly, Brian Phillips in particular. This is not going to be a fun airplane or simple airplane to put together. So here we are about 4 hours later, and it's all hooked up. Everything works, more or less. Uh, this thing is a wiring nightmare. I wound up having to put extensions on quite a few leads because they're so short. And fishing those wires through the bottom of the fuselage from the wing, not for the faint of heart. And then had one of the Y cables, the one for the gear, went bad in the process of playing around with this thing for a while. And I had to put my own wire cable harness together to get the gear working. But it, oh, oops, let me get my hand out of the way here. Get out of the way. There we go. Oops. There we go. Everything more or less works. All the control surfaces, flaps, elevators. Had a problem with elevators. I think I had a wire hooked up backwards and it wasn't working right, but went back, took everything apart, and got it working again. So it's got a little mix built in. I don't remember doing that. Anyway, looking forward to flying this monster. Found out that a 4000 uh, 6S battery does not fit well. I've got one in here now, but it's I have to trim a lot off the bottom of the canopy to get it to fit. So I've got a 3200 on order. I think it'll work better. So hopefully we get a next couple of weeks. We'll get a nice day, and I can get this thing out to one of my flying fields and have a go with it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm just going to go take a picture of this wiring. You can't believe it. It's a bird's nest. So here's that bird's nest of wires. You can only see the top few. They're buried down in, there's a cavity down in this fuselage where they are. But I could not figure out any way to get them well organized, so I just stuffed them in there out of the way of the battery. Uh, of course, you got wires for gear, all the control surfaces. Thank goodness they didn't put any lights on this thing, because I don't know where I would have put more wires. But in particular, a couple of wires coming off the wing were way too short. They just barely got into the fuselage. I had to put extensions on those. And then there were some other wiring issues with trying to get the wires that were in the fuselage plugged into the receiver. And so I wound up putting extensions off the receiver to the wires to the, let's see, ailerons, elevators, and rudder all had to have extensions, and while I was at it, I just did it with all of them. So that's part of what you're seeing here, was just trying to get enough wire to where I could get everything out away from this tight space, and then I had to stuff them back in there. Well, it all works, but it sure doesn't look very good. And but I don't know of any other way to put this together. In the process, I had everything working, and then the gear quit working. And there was a very short little three-way wiring harness for the gear, and somehow something got disconnected in that wire that hooked into the receiver, the single wire that before it split, and the gear just quit working altogether. So I took two-way splitters and put those together and managed to get the gear working. It has some real short ones I could use. But anyway, this whole process took about 4 hours to get all this together and get it working. Not easy and not fun, but at least it does work. This is not an airplane you're going to take apart to take to the field. Then, still looking at this mess of wiring, I decided I was going to take it all apart and see if I could improve on it. And I did. I took out all of the long leads connected to the receiver, substituted shorter leads coming off the receiver, and then reconnected all of the aircraft leads to those, and those were all Y cables. I didn't have any three-ways, so I had to cobble something together for that, but let's go look at how that turned out. Well, here's the airplane with all of the wiring basically taken out that I could take out, except for 2 extensions for flaps, and those flaps leads are buried way down there next to the receiver. Barely able to get those hooked up. And this is all the wiring I took out, including 2 iron cores that I'm going to probably want to put back in. Those filter interference. They came with the airplane, and I'm probably going to need to put them back together. But let's get started here and see what we can get hooked up. So here's another view of what this new wiring setup looks like with the battery in the airplane. Before the battery was actually resting up against those wires, and now I've got about 1.5 inch or so of clearance. And everything is actually, even though it may not look like it, is a lot better arranged in there. So maybe we ought to, after all this work, just make sure everything is actually still connected. Let's take a look. Up elevator, down elevator, right rudder, left rudder, ailerons. That's a little more gain on the ailerons. There we go. Ailerons are working. Flaps are working. Motor runs. And check the gear. Gear check. All seems to be working. So apparently I didn't get anything disconnected in all that fooling about. And thanks for watching.